Welcome, everyone. It is July 23rd, 2024, and our special guest tonight is Andrew Koch with the Republican Jewish Council. We are going to be talking about the rise of anti-Semitism in America, and our hosts are Mark Ungerfer and our hostess with the mostest, Jackie Saxton. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Dwight. Yeah, so I mean, this is a fairly important topic to me, being Jewish. So I'm really excited that we get a chance to delve into this a little bit. I know that we've talked about it kind of in peripheral terms with a lot of our other guests we've had on, whether they be candidates for office or other local officials. So it's good that we're going to get to deep dive on this. Mark, as the token non-Jew, I'll just start off with the questions.
Well, I think we're going to first kind of play the video that sets all of this up. It kind of, how shall I say, demonstrates one of the things that we've been talking about. So, Dwight, can you start that?
Sure.
Right here on the Sligo Creek Trail, under the Beltway, just steps from Holy Cross Hospital. But what you're looking at isn't a mural. It's not protest art. It's hate. Loud, repetitive, vulgar. Dozens of times, different colors, different layers. F Israel, spray painted like a chant. This isn't about foreign policy. This is anti-Semitism, plain and simple. Let's get something straight. Israel isn't a democracy. A U.S. ally, a home for Jews, Arabs, Druze, Christians, and more. You can criticize a nation without calling for its destruction, but that's not what this is. Imagine being a Jewish kid biking by here. Imagine being a Holocaust survivor out for a walk. What message does this send? That you're not welcome? That your family doesn't belong? That hate is just part of the trail? Well, here's my message. As a Georgetown student and as an American, you don't get to scare us into silence. You don't get to erase a nation with spray paint, and you don't get to redefine justice as hate. The paint will fade, the walls will be scrubbed, but the truth stays, and Israel stays.
Yep.
Well, that's a really sobering. There's a number of ways to unpack it, but one in particular is that it's in the middle of Montgomery County. Dwight was checking on it today. It remains up, so that despite the progressive label that Montgomery County tries to attach to it, it continues to be part of Montgomery County. Explain to me how that is. What's your take on why a supposed progressive jurisdiction like Montgomery County allows for this expression to continue to stay?
Really, I'll just come right out and say it. Anti-Semitism is no longer a bug or a flaw in the progressive movement. It is a feature of the progressive movement. And it is not just hatred for the fact that the state of Israel exists as a state of refuge for the Jewish people. It is the fact that Jews exist as people, and we just want to live our lives just like everyone else. And yet, simply because we practice a faith, the original faith in world history, somehow that is justification for calling for our complete extermination. And that is why a man from Chicago, a radical from Chicago, traveled to Washington to execute 2 employees of the Israeli embassy following an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. It is why an Egyptian national who is in this country illegally because his visa's expired firebombed a Run for Their Lives event that has been held every week since the war started in solidarity with the hostages who are still being held in Gaza almost 2 years later. I mean, how much more do you want me to say? I can go on all night with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been something that I've noticed spike dramatically since October 7th. I know that there have definitely been times growing up as a kid that I experienced like some mild anti-Semitism once or twice, but I can't say that I've ever seen it to this level since I have in the past 2 years. It's truly scary.
And Jackie, I know you shared outside of this forum an incident where the most vile anti-Semitic slur that exists, which I will not repeat here, was posted on the bulletin board at the playground in your neighborhood.
Oh, well, yeah. Like shortly after October 7th, there were people carving swastikas into parts of the neighborhood where I live. So, yeah.
And it should be pointed out, we're talking about Montgomery County. Ever since the last Israel-Hamas war, that was Operation Guardian of the Walls in May of 2021, Montgomery County has been the site of half of all anti-Semitic incidents in Maryland over the last 4 years. And this is according to information from the Anti-Defamation League. That is why Maryland is now, I believe, in the top 5 states that have the most anti-Semitic incidents, right up there with places like New York, New Jersey, and California, which of course have huge Jewish communities in their states. And that is not a good trend that Maryland has risen up that high in terms of the states that have the most anti-Semitic incidents. We're going in the wrong direction, and we have been now for the better part of 4 years, and Montgomery County is the driver of that.
So do you... Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say, can you speculate about some of the people who are behind all of this?
Well, here's the even more infuriating part. We have not heard about any arrests at all in any of these acts of anti-Semitic vandalism, whether it's at Sligo Creek Park or at elementary schools in Bethesda. There's an elementary school in Bethesda that has been defaced with anti-Semitic graffiti multiple times. We have not heard one single word about any arrests at all by the Montgomery County Police Department. Is that because the Montgomery County Council is handcuffing the police department instead of letting the Montgomery County Police handcuff criminals and handcuff the perpetrators of these acts of hateful vandalism? We deserve answers, and we're not getting any from the county council or the police department.
So from a political standpoint, we have our county executive and county council races next year, and there are several Jewish candidates on the ballot on the Democrat side, which I guess presumably they will still be a Democrat majority in Montgomery County come next cycle. Do you think that this is going to play a big role for Montgomery County voters when they make their decisions next year, especially when choosing Jewish candidates versus non-Jewish candidates, or making sure that the candidates that they are choosing are pro-Israel, are actually going to commit to doing something about the anti-Semitism? Or do you think that's going to rank towards the bottom of what voters here care about?
Well, knowing Montgomery County, Jackie, and you would know this a lot better than me because you live in Montgomery County, it seems that issues like that rank towards the bottom of the list, and really the party letter before the person's name is really all that matters. And I think it's up to the Republican Party in Montgomery County to find quality candidates to unseat these Democrats who, including the Jewish Democratic council members, who, as far as I can tell, really put their Judaism towards the bottom of the list of their priorities. Their priorities are really their progressive ideology and their progressive talking points more than their actual faith.
Can we go back 2 years ago to when the Hamas attack started? And within very short order after that took place, there seemed to be a coordinated messaging communications campaign, whatever you want to describe, not just from Hamas, but from organizations that were sympathetic to the sort of anti-Zionist ideology that's been associated with, basically destroying Israel. Is it worth speculating on the fact that there has been this kind of that there has been, first of all, coordination, and how is it that so quickly after those attacks took place, that we heard sort of this campaign against Israel, against Zionism in the United States?
Well, something that I've learned about since this war started is a very unholy and dangerous alliance called the Red-Green Alliance. And that's between radical Islamic extremists and the radical far left. And they have combined forces to engage in this coordinated campaign of anti-Semitic hatred. Now, really, it's very difficult to separate the Israel part from the Jewish part because they use the word Zionist as a slur. Zionist is a dog whistle. It is a code word for Jew. And as a result, they are now working together on this. Now, as it turns out, extremist Muslims tend to align more, they tend to vote more radical left because they believe that progressives are very foolish and naive and gullible and easily manipulated, as opposed to conservatives like us who stand strong on principles. We have principles, we have integrity, compared to progressives who will go like this, stick their finger up in the air and see which way the wind is blowing, and then pick their cause du jour that way.
Well, so you mentioned that conservatives tend to be, at least at this moment, the more pro-Jewish and pro-Israel party. What do you think explains kind of, we call it horseshoe politics, where you reach the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson right wing of the party that basically loop over to far left in their ideology when it comes to things like Zionism? Where do you think that stems from?
It's just where, like you said, the horseshoe effect, where the radical right and the radical left meet, and what unites them? Their hatred of Jews. The radical right thinks we're not white. The radical left thinks we're too white and too capitalist. The radical right thinks we're communists, and they just choose to traffic in long disproven anti-Semitic tropes that have been disproven for years. But they're such ideologues that nothing, not even facts, can convince them otherwise.
So let me go back. You made a kind of comment that the progressives were sort of putting their finger to the air, and well, let me push back on that, because I'm not sure I agree with you on that. I think that my perception is there's a much deeper ideological foundation to that, which is perhaps all the more worrisome, that it's not just catering to opinion, but there's kind of a fundamental set of values that they've got that are leading in this particular direction. We can get into this kind of identity politics and hierarchy of who's aggrieved and what have you. So I guess I don't want to get too deeply in that argument, but surely you must acknowledge that there is a kind of deeper ideological component that we're dealing with, that actually I think makes it even this phenomenon all the more scary. That it's not just a reaction to, like, we're going to cater to a particular block of votes, but it is a sort of deeper hostility to Jews generally and Israel specifically.
Well, I guess really you mentioned about progressive ideology and aggrieved. Critical race theory is a huge factor here. And critical race theory, in its narrow worldview and its narrow binary worldview, believes that all Jews are white and therefore are oppressors, even though there are such things as Black Jews, Latino Jews, and even Middle Eastern Jews. The majority of Jews in Israel are what are known as Mizrahi Jews, the Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, the Jews from the Arab world. And I can tell you, I have one of my closest friends that I made here in Baltimore is a Black convert to Judaism. Another one of my close friends is a Puerto Rican Jewish woman who used to live in Baltimore. So again, and I've become friends. I've gotten to know a handful of Mizrahi Jews, specifically Persian Jews, Jews of Iranian descent. So to say that all Jews are white, or Jews so white, as the foolish progressive hashtag was not too long ago, it's simply foolish and incorrect and off base, and not based in reality at all, because these people couldn't be bothered to actually get out their own, again, are non-white Jews, because, well, white Jews do exist.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because a lot of the ideology is sort of predicated on trying to sort of pigeonholing, if you will, the Jewish community, the Israeli community, as being European, having European coming to the Middle East, and completely failing to recognize the number of people who were native to the Middle East or native to the region and were dislocated. I mean, they ended up coming from, pick your country, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Ethiopia, and going
Places where they were basically expelled.
Places where they were expelled. So that in some respects, what we're seeing, this decolonialization that took place, is a little like what happened with India and Pakistan. People from their homelands of centuries ended up having to leave, or Libya. I mean, we just go down the list of the countries, and ended up in Israel. So that there's a misunderstanding that many of these anti-Semitics, the progressives, have, that Israel was formed not just from Europeans. Obviously, Ashkenazis were a big component, but that over time, it's a reflection of a diverse community of Jews that came from around the world.
Right, and the majority of Jews here in the U.S. are Ashkenazi. They're of European descent. But again,
Right.
There are Ashkenazi Jewish communities here in the U.S. There are Sephardi communities. There are Mizrahi communities. But again, good luck getting a progressive to actually believe that, because, well, again, they're ideologues. They cannot be convinced to change their minds with facts.
So we've known, and a lot of people have recognized for a while, that Trump has probably been one of the best friends of the Jewish people and to the state of Israel that we have had possibly ever. What do you think about some of his policies? Are they going to do more to stop anti-Semitism? Are they going to encourage the people who are already against us to ramp up their behavior in terms of making sure that we're providing Israel with weapons, or things like trying to expand the Abraham Accords? I know that's something that you're very passionate about as well.
Well, there are other countries in the Middle East that do want to sign on to the Abraham Accords, and one of them is Saudi Arabia. That is actually the reason why Hamas launched its massacre on October 7th, was to prevent normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia, of course, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest player in the Arab world. And if Saudi Arabia signs on to the Abraham Accords, a number of other nations in the Middle East, especially on the Arabian Peninsula, will follow suit. And as a result, the Palestinians will end up being isolated. That includes both the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. And if Saudi Arabia had normalized relations with Israel prior to October 7th, that would have been the end of Hamas. I think Hamas would have fallen, but instead, Hamas was able to throw the cause of the Palestinian people back in as a wedge issue in the Arab world.
Well, we haven't touched on it. A key component is the sponsorship that Hamas enjoys from Iran. And so,
Hamas is an Iranian proxy.
Exactly, and the back and forth with Saudi Arabia, which you're right, at least my opinion, I strongly agree with you, is very much a driver of the timing of this. It is a sort of proxy war that exists between the Saudis and the Iranians. It does look fairly good. I mean, a great deal of progress has been made on the Abraham Accords. Hopefully, as Jackie referenced, collectively, both Israel and the United States can work to get that process back on track. And we've seen the Iranian proxies really, at least on a military level, I don't know if the public opinion is a sort of one set of issues, but on a military level, have really taken a beating since October 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza have been absolutely decimated. Hezbollah in Lebanon has been decimated, and the only proxy that really is still standing and is formidable at all is the Houthis in Yemen. And even they've taken a bit of a beating because they've been hit with airstrikes by both Israel and the U.S. and even the U.K. as well. And that was really to restore freedom of navigation in the Red Sea.
So yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say,
No, go ahead.
where do you see things going, right? I mean, we have an administration that's pro-Israel, pro-Jewish. We have a DOJ that I think at the federal level is not going to hesitate to prosecute hate crimes like this. But you have states like Maryland who are not going to be as supportive and fighting back against those kinds of things. So that's going to struggle. Where do you see things kind of going in the long term in terms of anti-Semitism? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Are we going to be at this level for a while? Where do you anticipate is going to happen, especially with New York?
I think we're going to be at this level of anti-Semitism for a long time. And there was an article recently published in the Jerusalem Post which said that that we're going to continue seeing high levels of anti-Semitism here in the U.S. for perhaps the next decade. And if it continues like that, I think you're going to see an awful lot of American Jews make Aliyah, emigrate to Israel. And if Zohran Mamdani becomes mayor of New York, you're going to see a lot of religious Jews in New York either move to Florida or also make Aliyah.
It's sobering that it will continue like that. I'm struck of a book Walter Russell Mead wrote, Ark of the Covenant, which is a great history of the evolving attitudes. It goes back to the 19th century that Americans had. It's deeper than that, but one of the threads to the book is the attitudes of Americans towards Zionism, towards the creation of Israel. And it reflects a sort of fascinating observation that many American Jews did not support the creation state of Israel. It was kind of a division, let's just put it that way, until World War II. And obviously the Holocaust had the effect of sort of unifying a sense of inclusion. But another thread through that whole process was the very strong support in many American Christian communities, again, going back to the 19th century, for Zionism, for the creation of a state of Israel. That has been a component of American attitude towards foreign policy for a long period of time. And that thread continues to this day. And I obviously, I think it's an important part, certainly an important part of the driver for the Trump policy. I mean, it's a thread to American policy. And I think it's certainly reflected in the fact that Mike Huckabee is the ambassador. It reflects the strong support that many American Christians have for the state of Israel. And as far as I can say, I don't see that there's anything that's changing in that. If anything, it's as strong since October 2 years ago as it was. It has increased. And I also think that my observation too would be that the anti-Semitism that we've seen in many ways makes that stronger, precisely because it's really the fringe progressives that are the most identified with the political component to the anti-Semitism. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, there's always been a lot of support for Israel from evangelical Christians. Now, what does that mean to Jews? Well, Jews I think, are suspicious of that because of the attempts throughout history by evangelicals to convert us to Christianity. And we've been resistant to that. And so that's why when we see evangelicals professing so much love and support for Israel, it makes us suspicious because, again, of past campaigns to convert us. Now, of course, there are certainly no shortage of holy sites. There's no shortage of holy sites for Christians in Israel, from the Jordan River, where people go to the spot where Jesus was baptized. Then, of course, There's Nazareth, the birthplace of Jesus, and then of course there's the Christian quarter in the old city of Jerusalem, which is home to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and Via Dolorosa. So that's just a few examples of why Christians are so attracted to Israel. And of course, the Western Wall, the Kotel, is a place for people of all faiths to come and pray. And it is, of course, the holiest site for Jews because it's part of the Temple Mount, the remnants of the Second Temple, and actually will be mourning the destruction of that temple coming up here next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend with the fast of Tisha B'Av.
So inevitably at some point, we're going to have a Democrat back in the White House. And with the left taking such a hard step further to the left, do you think that we could see in the near future or within our lifetimes kind of an end to our allyship with Israel, at least the way that we know it now?
Well, I would have to hope that at some point the Democrat Party goes through a major course correction and comes back to some semblance of sanity, because what we've seen here, basically going back to the Obama administration, was that they've just gone completely off the deep end with these nutty policies, whether it's policies on climate and the environment or social policies or foreign policies, all of which, especially the foreign policy, has been just outright catastrophic and disastrous. I don't see how, if they continue on this course, how they could ever expect to win elections in the White House or in Congress, because they are just that radical, and it's alarming how much of the population here supports that radicalism.
Well, let me take it from a different direction. Some of the opinion polls have suggested that it's a challenge and perhaps maybe even a fool's errand to try and disaggregate support for Israel with anti-Semitism, because it gets meshed in together. There's a political.
They're completely intertwined.
But there's a hostility among younger voters. You can see it in the age breakout, sort of Gen Z, and I guess they're the youngest voters at this particular point, but also more millennial voters too. Your thoughts on why there's this generational divide? Again, older Americans.
Well, in terms of millennial
support. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Gen Z and millennials, I really wonder, because they're getting their information from really unreliable sources, namely social media. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, etc., where people can really just go on there and post and say whatever they want, and really there isn't really much that anyone can do other than do their own independent research. I mean, these Gen Z and millennials, well, I'm a millennial, but Gen Z, if you ask them to find Israel on a map or a globe, an actual map or a globe, I'm not talking about Google Maps on a smartphone, which, by the way, was the technology for which was invented in Israel, I don't think they could do it, because our public schools, and I'd like to get a slow clap for this one time, our public schools have done a bang-up job of teaching geography. And so they can't find Israel on a map, and I'm willing to bet that almost all of them have never even been outside of the U.S., or if they have, they certainly haven't been to Israel.
Good point.
So, and staying on that topic of education, we've seen some states over the past several years mandate Holocaust education in their public schools. But I mean, I obviously think that should be like all 50 states should be doing that. Are we seeing states push back against that more than they should? What can we be doing to make sure that more states, because this is one of those histories doomed to repeat itself things if we don't learn about it. And the fact that there are as many Holocaust deniers as there are is shocking to me. So what do you think should be done from an educational perspective, especially as the Trump administration is trying to wind down the Department of Education altogether?
Well, that's going to be up to the states to decide, and less than half of the states require Holocaust education, and I don't think I've really seen any states pushing back on it so much, but there certainly is more that can be done, and certainly we can lobby our legislators to introduce a bill to require that, and then to pass it and make sure it gets taught. Again, we have a dwindling number of Holocaust survivors because they're getting older, and hundreds, if not thousands of them are dying every day. And it won't be too long where within at least my generation, we won't have any left to tell their stories, to tell their eyewitness accounts of what they went through, the horrors that they went through in Europe during the Shoah. And I think one thing that's important, and I think this would be a great class project, is to record interviews with Holocaust survivors so that future generations can learn from them about the horrors of this horrific genocide, the genocide by which all others are measured.
I would say disquieting, we started talking about the curriculum issues, and may I say that a somewhat disquieting trend along those lines has been the political positions that some of the teachers' unions have taken that have aligned themselves, how shall we say, with more of the progressive agenda on foreign policy.
Well, we have
their
teachers.
Their influence is obviously substantial in picking and choosing, which books, which materials get included in curriculum. I'm sorry if you were going to respond.
Well, we've had teachers union representatives in Montgomery County express support for Hamas and deny the atrocities that have happened. This has happened in both Montgomery County and also across the Potomac River in Fairfax County, Virginia. There was also a resolution that was introduced that was approved by a committee of the NAA, but was voted down by the whole NEA to basically disassociate from the ADL on anti-Semitism curriculum. And I think about a quarter of the delegates at the NEA's recent convention voted in support of that resolution. So there are an awful lot of people in the NEA who support basically not having any anti-Semitism education at all in their curriculums where they live. And I think that opens the door for Holocaust denialism being taught in the classroom. And as you said, Jackie, that is incredibly dangerous.
So as we kind of get towards the end-ish of the show, are there other topics surrounding anti-Semitism or the state of Israel that we haven't covered that you want to touch on?
Basically, we're still seeing alarming and frightening incidents of anti-Semitism. Of course, in late May, just over 2 months ago, we saw two young employees of the Israeli embassy be hunted down and executed in cold blood in Washington, D.C., just down the road from us, simply because they were representing the Israeli government here in the U.S. We had people who walk every week in solidarity with the hostages. They were attacked with Molotov cocktails and a homemade flamethrower simply because they were Jewish and walking in solidarity with the hostages who are still being held. There's still 50 hostages being held in Gaza almost 2 years later, and over half of them are dead. And really, this war could have been over if Hamas just laid down its weapons and disbanded, same with the Islamic Jihad, released all the hostages, and left Gaza. But they won't do that because they're warmongers who are hell-bent on killing Jews, on exterminating Jews. And they have an awful lot of useful idiots in this country, and those useful idiots, of course, are the progressives, and they are so easily manipulated by the radical Islamic extremists that it is just unbelievable. And that is how we've gotten the Red-Green Alliance.
So tell us a little bit more about the Maryland Republican Jewish Council and what you're doing and how people who are interested can get involved.
Well, the Maryland Republican Jewish Council was started, and Jackie was one of the co-founders, and we started to engage Jewish voters with the Republican Party in Maryland because a lot of Jewish voters, well, they still vote Democrat. I think they still put their ideology ahead of their religion and still ultimately vote party line, even though the platform of the Republican Party is more aligned with traditional Jewish values. And what does that mean? Especially things like traditional marriage and the basic family unit. Those are core planks of the Republican Party's platform, and those are core values of Judaism. And yet here we have most Jews who vote against this. They vote in support of this radical progressive ideology that supports dismantling the family unit and undermining traditional marriage. And look what's happened as a result over the past 60 years. We've seen the dissolution of a family unit, and that has had absolutely catastrophic effects on the inner city. And the bottom line is Jewish values and Republican values are a great match. They align very well, and that is why we encourage voters who really are being told they're literally being told they are personas non grata in progressive circles. Come on over to the Republican side. We will welcome you with open arms. We will call out anti-Semitism for what it is. We will call out the sexual violence that was perpetrated on October 7th for what it is. Good luck getting Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar to recognize that. They were perfectly happy seeing Jewish women get raped and executed on October 7th, to the point that they can't even condemn it, even though they'll also turn around and whine about sexual violence against women. But in their world, it's okay if it's against Jewish women.
Well, one of the things that we as Jews very much always appreciate is a good meal. So we do want to plug to everybody to check out Masoni's in Perry Hall. It's one of our favorite places to go and get Italian food. So much later than this heavy topic that we've been having tonight. And, Mark, anything else you want to plug before we wrap up?
Yeah, I was going to say, but, frequently when our guests are on, they're, from elsewhere and they're in no position to go to Masoni's. But Andrew, you're actually relatively nearby. You're in Baltimore County, are you not?
Right.
So you have no excuse whatsoever other than to.
So we expect a written review. Just kidding. You don't have to do that. But definitely check it out. Their food is delicious. And they serve girl dinner. I think I said that a couple times ago when I was on last time. Girl dinner is like Caesar salad and French fries and champagne. It's great. Highly recommend. And a Diet Coke.
And among the other things we have to recommend are the Ehrlich event that we're having with the next week, next Wednesday, and we're doing a book event for the state party. But my spies tell me that Montgomery County Republican Club members will be able to get a copy of the book, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true, Mark. They will.
I know. I had a very good source for that particular rumor, but we certainly encourage them to come to that.
And not only that, don't forget tomorrow night, if you're in Baltimore County, Senator Dave McCormick from our neighbors to the north is their keynote speaker for the Baltimore County Republican Party. You can pay at the door if you want.
Awesome.
And you, Jackie, have a national YR convention, Young Republican Convention.
We do. A week from today, we are sending 25 Maryland delegates to the National Convention in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you to all of your generous donations that helped us get there. We're always still accepting donations because when we come back, we want to take everything we learn and put that to work to get more Republicans elected in our state legislature next year. So please go to mdyrs.com and continue to donate. We'll keep you posted about everything we've learned. And I'm running for a national position, which I'm feeling very good about.
So what position are you running for?
So I am running for State Chairman's Association chair. So I would be in charge of all of the state chairs across the country, helping them to learn better leadership and things that they can do to improve their states. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, good luck to you for that.
Thank you.
Andrew, this has been a very sobering show, but we really appreciate your coming on and sharing your insights with us. I think this has been a very informative discussion. And Jackie, good luck to you in, is it Nashville?
Nashville, Tennessee.
good luck to Nashville. I hope you get away from wherever your convention's being held to the Grand Ole Opry, because you can't do Nashville unless you get out of one of those nights.
That's what I've heard. I'm looking forward to it.
That's my strong recommendation.
Gotta hit up Broadway.
Yep.
Isn't that
Thank you,
renamed Mini
everybody.
Pearl after Mini Pearl now? The Grand Ole Opera.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I don't. Well, yeah, no, it's
Mini
it's-
Pearl's
it's-
from Hee Haw, I think.
Yeah, it's an institution. It's worth seeing.
All right, guys. We will be back
Thank
next
you.
week. Thanks, guys.
Let's go down to Missoni, where Italian cuisine shines. Let's go down to Missoni's, we'll have a good old time. Homemade pasta at Missoni's, sauce is fresh